It's a project that took over 3 years to complete from the landscape point of view. It was a project where the landscape and the architecture really were working as one, and it was an important mandate given by the client to make sure that the whole thing was like fully integrated into the natural environment. So probably the most important aspect was that when you arrive at the front of the house, it seems like a very modest country home. It's only when you start to walk around the whole property that you really get a sense of the scale. Part of that success in making it feel sort of a bit more integrated into the environment was there are two wings to the house, and one of them is the garage wing, where we have a green roof that comes right on top of the whole garage. The other was the guest wing that you don't even really see from the front of the house, as you only experience it when you get towards the back. It was a very challenging site to work with, because we're right on the steep parapet, if you will, down to the lake. A lot of rock, a lot of ledge, a lot of drainage challenges, and a lot of site accessibility challenges during the construction. The only area that we really had to park was the tennis court, so we decided that we would sacrifice the tennis court in the short term. Early on in the project, when we were doing the site surveying, working with the architects to position the house, we actually noticed there was a fairly deep valley, but there was a large outcropping of rock that created almost an island effect. And so we worked with the architects to position the house in such a way that we could create the driveway and sort of the turnaround around this rock, and ultimately led to having beams that incorporate the garage to the rock and really tie the house literally into the landscape. Part of the rock had to be line drilled to be blasted off to make room for the garage and the driveway, which left these very clean line holes all the way down the face of the rock. And the architects challenged us to try and make it look natural. We eventually came up with the idea of actually flaming the rock. So we had massive propane tanks and flamethrowers, and we were flaming the rock and then with hammers banging it, and it would just start to pop and flake off. About 2 weeks of just working that rock, and we were able to get it back to a much more natural state. This type of project requires a high level of not only coordination with architects and engineers and the general contractor and everything, but it requires a high level of detailing. And to give you an example, I mean, the plantings now, if you walk around and experience the place, the vast majority of the plantings is very natural, and you would almost say that the house is just sort of put in the place. But to give you an example, we spent 252 hours just on the planting plans for what we were going to do here. So you can imagine how much time was spent on just like detailing of the stone or the deck. Towards the end of the project, there's a part of the landscape that's a grass slope that takes you down to the lake. But because of the topography, there's a part that's a little bit steeper. If the grass is a little bit wet, getting up in a 4x4 could be a bit challenging. And so we were tasked to find a path, and the only place we could do it was kind of through the woodlands. There's a stream that runs through there, so we had to build 2 wooden bridges and a pathway. And ultimately, it ended up being one of my most favorite little experiences in the garden. For me personally, it's a huge sense of satisfaction having put so much time, energy, and literally blood, sweat, and tears into this project. This whole pool deck is on a south-facing exposure with no shade, and July and August there were some absolutely brutal days, just almost intolerable. But my men stayed focused and did amazing work. The whole picture of all that coming together, and then to be recognized on a national level for what we've accomplished is very, very meaningful.